Hello, welcome to Baking in Charlie World. Today we are going to make beer bread. Beer bread has been becoming a great recipe that everyone loves to make because there's been shortages of yeast in the grocery stores since Corona broke out. And it's something that doesn't require a lot of complicated rising with the dough and etc. So I thought, since most of us are sheltering in place in the country, it'd be a great recipe to share with you. So we're going to have a couple ingredients that we need. So the basic recipe of beer bread is 3 cups of flour. This all-purpose flour. In this case, I've got self-rising flour, so it already has all the rising agent, which is baking powder, mixed in. If you don't have or can't find self-rising flour, you can use regular flour with a tablespoon of baking powder. We also have a teaspoon of fine salt. Don't use the kosher salt. I love kosher salt for most everything, but for this it's better to use the fine salt. Then you'll have a 1/4 cup of melted butter and 1 can or 1 bottle of beer. So as a rule, only cook with stuff that you would actually eat if you were eating it regularly. So with beer, if it's not a beer you would drink, don't bake with it. I kind of call this series boozy baking because I love cooking with alcohol or mixing alcohol into my baking. The equipment you're going to need is a tin baking dish or any kind of baking loaf pan that you got. To get this a little more excitement than just regular old bread, and you could just do all the recipe with those ingredients, but I've added a 1/4 cup of honey and some fresh thyme from my garden. So the honey and the thyme will make it kind of an interesting, jazz up the loaf a little bit. So I'm excited about that. You don't need a mixer, you just need a simple bowl and your own hand to mix it with. I like to use these spatulas because you can get the edges really well. So to prepare for our baking, you need to make sure you've got your oven preheated to 350 degrees. I've already set this one up. And so what we'll do is we'll start by putting in our ingredients. So we've got our 3 cups of flour, again, with the baking powder added. If you add the baking powder, make sure you mix it together. We're going to go ahead and put in our salt. And the butter will come on at the end, as well as the honey and thyme and beer now will go in. So go ahead and pour in our beer, and then we're going to mix in our honey here. So again, use a good honey that you would like to eat. You can use organic brands or you can use anything else. Sometimes I have some friends that have maybe honeybees. That's great friends to have. So you get this nice and bubbly kind of thing going on. And so what you want to do, and it smells just like beer, I love that, is you want to mix it really good. And it'll come together right away. And you'll get kind of this scraggly mess of dough. It's okay, that's how it's supposed to be. You want to get all the dry stuff off the sides and mixed in with the wet stuff. You can do this with your hands too. Some people think that makes it taste better, and sometimes I do kind of like that part of it. So now it smells really, really beery. Let's see if we'll get you a little look here. Let's see what's going on in there. And what I'm going to do first, before I put that in there, so I'm going to put half of the butter, this butter here, in your bottle. And there's a little bit of in there. Again, only something you would drink. I'm going to put half of it into the tin on the bottom and kind of spread it up the sides. So let me microwave this really quick. So again, I'm going to pour about half of it in here. And what I'm going to do because with the honey especially, it's going to stick. I'm going to make sure I get the butter all up on the sides of the dish. So you can see it here. And a little pool of it in the bottom, that's totally good. And I'm ready to put the batter in now. So let's do that. Grab a knife. Go ahead and scrape this down into the making sure it gets in all the corners. So I've got it all spread in the tin now. So now I'm going to take the rest of my butter and drizzle it across the top. So now you've got your beer, bread, and your butter mixed in there. Go ahead and put it in the oven for 350 degrees. And I will bake that for 50 minutes. Okay, we've baked our beer bread for 50 minutes. So now we're going to take it out of the oven. Oh yeah. So you can see it's got this nice, rough, pretty golden color on the surface. That's exactly what you want. And I'm going to let that cool for probably at least 30 minutes before I try to get it out of the pan and slice it. So I'm going to put that on my cooling rack, and I will go ahead and show you the finished product here in a sec. So we're ready to slice our bread. So as you remember, it came out of the oven, looks great. You want to take a little knife and go around the edges, kind of get in and make sure it's not sticking to the sides. And then in this case, I'm going to go ahead and lift it out. Oh, look at that. Oh, it's nice and warm. And then I'm going to go ahead and put it on my block here. And we're just going to slice into it. And there's your bread. A little butter and jam on that is perfect. Thanks, everyone, for joining me today.